Have you ever really stopped to think about what gives a simple piece of paper its power? You know, like an eviction notice, a property deed, or a court order. Well, today we're going to trace this fascinating and honestly kind of hidden line from a medieval king's wax seal all the way to the humble rubber stamp. We're going to uncover how that one transformation secretly shaped the entire world we live in today. Let's dive in.
And it all starts right here. Just think about this for a second. In 1606, King James I is sitting in London, and with a stroke of a pen, he divides up a continent that he has never, ever seen. A land that was already home to millions of people. His main weapon wasn't an army, not yet anyway. It was a piece of parchment. That's it. This single document was all it took to turn an invasion into a right.
So, how did that even work? Well, in the beginning, this kind of power was intensely personal. It was all wrapped up in the king's seal, a symbol of absolute, unquestionable authority. The fancy word for it was octorious. But really, this wasn't just a signature. It was the king's own will, made physical.
Yeah, the royal seal was so much more than just an official stamp. It was a tool of incredible power. With it, a king could grant a corporation a monopoly to go out and conquer. He could give away huge chunks of land. He could literally transform an act of theft into a legal right. The seal turned paper into law, and that law was always, always backed by force. And here's where you see its core function in action. A charter with the king's seal wasn't just a suggestion. It was a promise, a guarantee from the state itself that whatever you seized would be protected. And with that seal, suddenly the people who were there first defending their own homes were legally reframed as trespassers on what was now officially someone else's property.
Now, this incredible power wasn't just used once. No, it was scaled up. It created what you could call a paper army of legal documents. And this allowed empires to spread across the entire globe, with this conquest by parchment often showing up long before the first soldier ever did. And there were three key weapons in this paper arsenal. First, you had deeds. These were used to fence off common lands, turning shared resources into private property. Then you had charters, like the one for the East India Company, which basically exported the king's power and gave corporations the right to conquer. And finally, you had patents, which granted titles to enormous territories, completely ignoring the people who already called that place home.
But all this paper needs a world that it can understand, a world that can read. And that is where the map comes in. It's so important to see a map not as just a neutral picture of reality, but as an active claim, a visual contract just waiting to be enforced. And just look at the stark contrast here. On one side, you have the living landscape. It's communal, it's fluid, it's defined by memory and use. And on the other side, you have the official map, a rigid grid of private taxable lots, defined by ink and by law. You see, the map doesn't just represent the world, it erases one world to create another one. And the heroes of this new, gridded world? The surveyors. Their chains and their compasses were like the advance agents of the state, making the messy living landscape legible to the bureaucrats. They carved up the world into these neat geometric parcels that could be bought, sold, and, most importantly, controlled.
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of our story. How did the immense personal power of a single king get from the royal court into every single local government office? Well, this was the great dispersal of power.
It was a slow, gradual journey. The singular, almost sacred power of the king's seal was first handed off to colonial governors. Then, it slowly seeped down into the hands of local notaries, and it kept going until today, where it rests in the humble little rubber stamp of your local county clerk. The power was domesticated, it became bureaucratic, and totally impersonal.
But here is the absolute crucial point. While the symbol changed, a crown became a simple ink stamp, the function didn't. Not one bit. The purpose was always the same, to take a private claim to ownership and make it an official, state-backed reality that could be enforced against absolutely anyone.
And this leads us to this really powerful idea, the state as a giant notary public. You see, the state hardly ever creates property itself. Instead, it just acts as the official witness. Its stamp transforms a simple agreement between two people into a public fact backed by the full force of the law. So, what does this actually look like today? I mean, how does a simple stamp on a piece of paper actually connect to real-world physical force? Let's trace that path, from the ink all the way to enforcement. The chain of enforcement is actually brutally clear when you lay it all out. It starts with a simple notary stamp. That certified paper allows a judge to then issue a court order. That order becomes something called a writ of possession. And that writ, that's the document the sheriff is holding when they arrive at your door. The link from a little bit of ink to real-world force is direct, and it is unbroken.
And this is the modern legacy. Every single time you see a foreclosure notice or an eviction order, you are seeing a direct descendant of that original royal charter from centuries ago. It's the same power, now just hidden in plain sight, wielded through boring, everyday bureaucratic paperwork.
It really all comes down to this single, powerful idea. Theft is legalized the moment it is notarized. The state doesn't have to do the taking itself. It just has to certify it. It gives its official blessing, and by doing so, transforms a contested act into an enforceable right.
Which leaves us with a final thought. We see these stamps, these signatures, and these seals all the time. They seem mundane, boring even. But now, when you see one, what are you going to see? Will you just see some ink on paper, or will you see the ghost of a king's seal and the entire machinery of the state standing right behind it?